Hey, peace and love, everybody. What's happening? This is your partner, Noble and Pooh. Welcome to the channel, Spiritual Politics. And notice the name. Please take note of the name, Spiritual Politics, which is very important because I believe we have to understand the spirit, the invisible force of the Creator as he moves through people and moves through events and whatnot. And this is very important to understand, especially if you can see what's happening inside of politics or see what's happening inside of the event. So today's conversation is in light of Aries Spears going to his Instagram, which I'm going to play the video. And I have a thing that I hope for. The thing that I really hope comes from this presentation would be for Aries Spears to see this, would be for him to go back and make another live and say, hey, I did ask to be put up on game, which I'm gonna show. I did ask for somebody to school me, to teach me and show me something, because maybe I'm wrong. I don't know a lot about politics, which I'm gonna play and whatnot. And recant the statements to the contrary, specifically, obviously, about Abraham Lincoln that he mentioned, that I'm gonna point out, of course. I think that's the responsible thing to do, especially when you have an audience, very successful brother. Salute to your success. We talking about, almost 1 million followers, whatnot, which now these people can listen to what you say, and then they'll form the opinion as if that's the truth. And it happens all the time. And one of my favorite things I like to point out would be, we all heard that Black people were 3/5 of a human being, according to the United States Constitution. And the United States Constitution does not say that. Why would you want the slave master to count? Because that's what they're talking to. Why would you want the slave master to count all of the slaves when, if they do that, they're going to have more representation of Congress? So it's going to be more slave owners in power. 3/5 mean count 3/5 of the slave population, which is 60%. Okay. Not that you're 3/5 of a human being, 3/5 of the population you can count for representation purposes in Congress. But yet we'll walk around here and we parrot this information. I heard Brother Malcolm X say it. I heard Jay-Z put it in the rhyme. And then people who listen to this, we start parroting things. Okay. And I'm going to show you some of this polywanted cracker parrot type of information that's here. So I believe that it's absolutely Brother Aries' responsibility to go back, if he sees this, to go back and say, hey, let's have a dialogue. A nice thing, super nice thing would be, yo, tag me and say, yo, bro, give me some burn. I'm saying it, put me on, front me that work, bro. Front me that work. Because see, I know a lot of people don't know the information I'm about to present. So therefore, I would love to have an open dialogue on your live if it's about the truth. If it's really about the truth and caring about the truth and the progression of people, then I believe that, this is just paramount and important. So I would absolutely love that opportunity. Ain't no shame in my game. I would love to have a conversation with you, bro. Okay. All right. So with that said, let's get into the dialogue. Aries Spear, first of all, comes from the constellation Aries, the zodiac sign. I was born with Venus in Aries, which means I love Aryan people. That's my nature. I love Aries. All right. This is an energy of war, and because Aries is the Greek god of war, and the Roman is the planet Mars. Mars rules Aries because planets, each zodiac sign has a planet that it rules. So when you see keywords like temper, violence, blood, this is a energy that represents warfare. Okay. So now it's a planetary body in a constellation. Aries is the constellation, Mars is the planet. So by Brother Aries Spear calling himself that, because the spear, right? This is in the Greek mythology. Aries technically represents a celestial spiritual phenomenon. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how Abe Lincoln used this energy as well, which is very interesting. It's going to be in the bonus part of this conversation. But nevertheless, this is a spiritual conversation at the core, okay? That's playing out through physicality, all right? Now, I just got this picture here of myself. As you see, I got that shirt on right now, Abraham Lincoln shirt. That's me at a Lincoln Memorial. The only reason that I'm showing you guys this is because I wholeheartedly do this, and I love this. And for me, I love Abraham Lincoln. I got them tattooed right here, which I don't have no tattoos, but in my mind, there's a tattoo of Lincoln right here, Union soldier. And the reason why I say that is because the truth of the matter is this. Really understand that our people were in slavery, got a chance to come up north, got guns, and then came back down south and got a chance to shoot and kill slave master. That is like an awesome thing, in my opinion, when it talks about, oh, okay, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. These people then got freed and came back with a group of people and start shooting you and killing you in one, right? A beautiful thing, right? So again, I just say that to say that I love this aspect of history. I love it. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Let me show you this. All right. So let's get into Aries. Let's put this here.
It's your boy Aries Spears here. Listen, I want somebody to put me up on game. I want somebody to educate me. Because listen, I'm not the most political dude in the world, but I do believe everybody has the right to express themselves about how they feel politically. But what is this thing where I guess people on the right love to say to people on the left, especially black people, that if we don't somehow vote for Donald Trump, that we are on the Democratic plantation. If we don't vote for Trump, that we are asleep and we are for the party that invented the KKK. Now, I do know, and you know, that the left invented the KKK. But I don't understand why people on the right act like that their people on the right, that their side, their hands have been totally clean. So you telling me for 400 years of slavery.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So this is going to be our first rebuttal here. I'm more concerned about the 400 years of slavery. That's a lie, and it's absolutely a curse. And this is what I call polywana cracker. People parrot information, okay? And the reason why I say it's a curse, I'll show you. One, the lie is this. We got that story from the Bible. Then the Lord said to Abram, know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in the land that is not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. Here's the spirituality part. This is Abraham that God is talking to. Very interesting. It will be Abraham that deals with this in the physical world in our reality. That's the beauty of God that we have to see, what is called synchronicity. Okay. We got to understand that. All right. So this is a Bible thing that happened, because in reality, the truth is 1619 is the first documentation of slaves in America. This is why on Netflix you see something called the 1619 Project. Okay. 1865, absolutely, 13th Amendment passes, Civil War is over. You are legally no longer a slave. That is 246 years and not 400, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason why I have Bozo the Clown here is because we play ourselves like we're Bozo the Clown by parroting information that we do not know, or false information. And so the problem here is that's 154 more years added on to the belief of 400 years a slave. We were not slaves for 400 years. We were slaves for 246 years. So why are we imposing another century and a half? Is because we read a biblical narrative somewhere that became the popular folklore of the day, and then that became what we perceive to be facts, and it's absolutely not true. But you want to know the beauty and the power of your word? In the beginning was the word, the power of your word, right? Because if slavery started in 1619 plus 400 years, it's going to take us to 2019. So just around there, 2019, guess what happened in 2021? Just 2 years over 400 years. Juneteenth becomes a federal holiday. Very interesting that fell damn near exactly to the 400-year marker. You see how powerful your words are? Under the belief that you still under slavery, and you're not. You see that? That is, man, that's mind-blowing to me. Okay. So fact number one, or I'm gonna call this the intro because the other things I got in the slide is lined up as fact 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm gonna call this the intro. 400 years a slave is absolutely false, brother. Okay. All right, let's continue. And I call this lie number one: Lincoln only freed slaves to save the Union.
And don't feed me with the bullshit about Lincoln freed the slaves. Lincoln didn't free black people because he loved black people. He did it to save the Union.
Okay. All right. So let me get that off. He said he did that to save the Union. So, ladies and gentlemen, when people say that, I know exactly what they get that from. It's only two things people do, and it's very, it's disingenuous, and it shows a lack of real research. To be honest with you, you can go to Google and type in Abraham Lincoln is a racist, and people gonna pull sound bites or something to try to make a narrative up. Okay, and I'll show you firsthand. All right, it's a statement that Horace Greeley, newspaper editor from New York, was having a conversation about Abraham Lincoln during the time of the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln said, "My paramount objective in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not either to save or destroy slavery." Okay, so let's read it in its totality. Let's start in the blue highlight. Okay, my objective in this struggle is to save the Union, and it is not either to save nor destroy slavery. Now read the yellow highlight, underline. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. Now read what's in green. And if I could save it by freeing the slaves, I will also do that. All right. Now I got to excuse me because my slider thing is right here and I can't see what's behind there after it says slaves. But in essence, you see it. He said if he could save the Union by freeing all of the slaves, he would do that. Now, what I find very, really just particular, is just like, yo, why when people give that quote, they don't never back it up with the sentence that come behind that? What's up with that? Right? What's going on here? Okay. So now Abraham Lincoln is contradicting himself. Okay. Now I spent a 4-hour conversation after the call last night because I actually did this video on live. I choose to do this one a little bit more streamlined to Aries Spear, and was having a conversation about well, Abraham Lincoln is pandering to black folks. No, he's not, ladies and gentlemen. He's not pandering. In fact, I'll address that a little later. All right. So Abraham Lincoln appears to say one thing, but he's also saying, well, if I can save the Union this way, I'll save it, by freeing all the slaves. If that's a possibility, I'll do that too, because all I do for the Union. So everybody think Abraham Lincoln is about the Union. He don't have no genuine love for black people. Stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Now, this is a speech in Cincinnati. This is before Abraham Lincoln becomes president. His inauguration isn't until 1861. So this is Cincinnati. And he says, we believe that the spreading out and the perpetuity of the institution of slavery impairs the general welfare. We believe, scratch that, nay, we know that is the only thing that has ever threatened the perpetuity of the Union itself. Okay, that's what he said. Now, he's on the record for saying, yo, slavery is destroying the fabric of the Union. Okay, that's what he's saying. All right. And I'm going to show you why a little later. All right, so let's go back here.
What up, your boy?
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong slide. It's this one. All right. So he's saying the second part is Lincoln only freed the slaves as a business decision. So let's hear this.
It was a business decision.
He said it was a business decision. Okay. All right. So now let's read this. The most costly war for the United States in terms of financial expenditure and loss of life, both of these combined, not just money, was the Civil War. The Civil War fought between the Union and the Confederate States resulted in an estimated almost 750,000 soldier deaths, making it the deadliest conflict in America's history. The economic cost of the Civil War was immense, with estimates suggesting it cost the Union approximately $6.19 billion in 1860 dollars, which would be the equivalent of over 150 billion in today's term when accounting for inflation. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, what's happening is, how did he do it for money when the country was bankrupt? Literally, that bankrupt the country. He had to get with some people up north to create government bonds, which black folks didn't buy, which Africans in the continent didn't buy. I'll show you a bond map to prove this in a later episode. Okay. The only African country that purchased bonds to help the United States government get black people out of slavery, which, by the way, we don't like to admit that. I don't know why. I know why. It's because you have an extreme negativity bias. Okay. But that's the truth of the matter. Like we said, there's almost 1 million dead people that fought about slavery. Some want it, some didn't want it. They're dead. So this is a fact. Okay. It's called graveyards, memorial sites, okay, battlefields. All right. And so, anyway, before I start getting super hyped, all right. The only African country that supported the bonds was Morocco. Okay. And that's very interesting because that's why I say everybody got a piece of the puzzle. You know, see, black people, when you trying to figure out white supremacy, you go through a couple schools of thoughts. You go through red, black, and green, black power, Marcus Garvey type of vibe, kind of goes into a Black Panther type of vibe as well. It's kind of what we call nationalist pro. You go Islamic, okay? You go red, and that could be Nation of Islam, 5%er, that can be a Moor, you know what I mean? You go into that school, all right? So there's only a couple schools of thoughts that we really go to that kind of goes against the status quo of America in a sense, right? Because you want to separate yourself because you feel like there's a great era, you know what I mean, and wrong within America. So you separate yourself, but at the same time, you still try to identify some sense of power and some sense of divinity. Okay. All right. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that everybody has a piece of the truth. Okay. And I'm only saying that to say is because I know the Moors, they'd be dealing with law and jurisprudence and what your status is inside of the country. And we from Morocco, and they go that lane. But I do find it interesting that the truth of the matter is, from what I've seen from a book called, I believe it's called Civil War Bonds. Morocco absolutely was a country who purchased war bonds to help the United States government get us free. Okay. So anyway, moving on. Let me see here where we at here. All right.
Lincoln has been quoted as saying he never believed that black people were as equal to white people.
Okay. So Lincoln has been quoted saying that black people are not the equivalent to white people. What is he talking about? Where did he get this from? And this is about to get real good. Real good. All right. So point 3, the superior race. This is Abraham Lincoln. I will not say then that I'm not nor ever have been in favor of bringing about any way the social and political equality of the white and black races, that I am not nor ever have been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor qualifying them to hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. And I would say in addition to this, that there is a physical difference between the white and black races from living together on terms of social and political equality. And inasmuch as they cannot so live, while they do remain together, there must be a position of superior and inferior. And I, as much, okay, as any other man, am in favor of having a superior position assigned to the white race. This is Abraham Lincoln saying this, okay? Now, where does this come from? It comes from the Lincoln-Douglas debates. And ladies and gentlemen, I must look at you when I tell you this. Do not rely upon on what somebody tell you or just pull one quote. If you really want to get into the mindset of Abraham Lincoln, you must study these debates. And you don't have to study all of them, because I didn't study all of them, because you're going to see a common theme that's going to play out. Abraham Lincoln is a genius. He's a lawyer. He's a genius. He's a mental genius. And he is of a certain esoteric school that I won't tell you that he's a part of. All right. And that's way higher than Freemasonry. And I give you a hint, and it absolutely deals with Egyptian mysteries. This is documented inside of the mother temple here in America, in a certain state, that they have his name etched in stone, literally in stone, as one of their founding, well, not a founding member, but one of the earlier practitioners of the order. Okay. And he used to roll with a black man. Okay. That was on this science. Okay. This is a known fact and it's established. I'll let you figure that out. All right. But you really have to get into these debates to understand his mindset. And so that was said in the debate, and I'm going to show you what was going on. Okay. So here is Stephen Douglas. And he said, in a joint discussion with Lincoln and myself at Charleston, I think it was the 18th of last month, Mr. Lincoln, referring to the subject, used the following language. And that following language is the exact same quote that I just read you. So if you look at the last sentence, there must be a position of superior, inferior, that I am as much as any other man in favor of the superior position being assigned to the white man. That's the exact same quote. And now the crowd is like, good for Lincoln, right? Okay, now who would say good for Lincoln? Think about that. Who would say good for Lincoln? People that is of the mindset that white people are superior to black people. Because it wouldn't be people that's in opposition to that said, no, black people are equal with us. Why would they say good for Lincoln for making that statement? Okay. Now watch what Abraham Lincoln's opponent attempts to expose Lincoln. And this is very, very, very important. Very important to understand. All right. So he goes on and he says, fellow citizens, here you find men hurraying for Lincoln and saying that he did right when in one part of the state he stood up for Negro equality, in another part for political effect. Wait a minute, political effect. He discarded the doctrine and declared that there always must be a superior inferior race. Abolitionists up north are expected and required to vote for Lincoln because he goes for equality of races, holding that by the Declaration of Independence, bookmark that because that's going to come back. The white man and the Negro were created equal, endowed by the divine law with that equality. And down south, he tells the old Whigs and the Kentuckians and Virginians and Tennesseans that there is a physical difference in the races, making one superior and the other inferior, and that he is in favor of maintaining the superiority of the white race over the Negro. Now, how can you reconcile these two positions, Mr. Lincoln? So Douglas is calling him out and saying, yo, you ain't slick. When you get down south, you actually be talking that white power, white superiority talk. But when you up north in the abolitions, you be talking the Declaration of Independence is for black people. I know what you're doing. And this is very, very ingenious of Lincoln. Why? Because the background is this is 1858. Abraham Lincoln is not president. If I'm not mistaken, he may be running for senator at the time in Illinois, right? So Abraham Lincoln is not in a position of power. Now, how must you get there? See, Aries spear, you have to use your mind in the art of war, because you cannot embody the mind in the principle of Aries, which is the constellation that governs warfare, and not use your critical thinking, as they call the art of war. And I've always said this of years, teaching. Niggas need to get rid of the Sun Tzu art of war and study the Civil War. That's the war that you need to understand the art of war about. Okay? So in this context, Douglas, his opponent, and see, that's the thing. Do I believe what niggas say? And they like, oh, Abraham Lincoln is a racist. When his opponent was like, nah, that nigga ain't with us. He trying to trick us and my constituents, my Southern delegate people, to go ahead and get the vote so he can get in power, so he can do what he always stood for. And what he stood for, as we saw in the Cincinnati speech before, this was what, 1857, we saw 18, right? That he was like, hey, slavery is a threat to the Union. I ain't with it. And I can show you so many Abraham Lincoln quotes when he's like, I ain't with it. In fact, there's one that says, those who talk about slavery, I want to see them try. I want to see it tried on them. See how they like it. Oh, it's a lot of stuff he was said about being anti-slave, right? So anyway, Lincoln is being very clever because this is the art of war. Okay. All right. So, furthermore, that whole statement right there, I think, should be dismissed again because his opponent, Douglas, has said, nah, man, Lincoln trying to trick y'all. That's what he on. I'm telling you, this dude, when he up north, he's saying something else. Black folks is with the Declaration of Independence and they all good and we all equal. Don't fall for the okie doke, nigga. You fell for the okie doke, bro. All right. So let's move on to I think this is the last point.
And that he never truly believed we should be free.
So he said Lincoln didn't believe we should be free. False. Okay. Where's it at? Let's get into it. Point 4. In the series of debates with Douglas in 1858, this debate took place. Well, let's read it. Abraham Lincoln most certainly articulated his belief that Black people are entitled to the rights enumerated in the Declaration of Independence during a debate at Ottawa, Illinois, in August 21st, 1958. Man, see, I can't ignore spirituality. And what I mean was, for the record, August 21st, 2017 was known as the American eclipse. But I'm telling you, if you go back in history, you will see that August 21st was also the date that Nat Turner rebelled. See, when the planets and spheres move, it's like a record, and certain things will start to repeat itself in our reality. Okay. So you gotta study, you gotta know the stuff. All right. And so during the debate, this is what Lincoln said. I agree with Judge Douglas. The Negro is not my equal in many respects, certainly not in color, perhaps not in moral or intellectual endowment. But in the right to eat the bread without the leave of anybody else, which his own hands earns, he is my equal and the equal of Judge Douglas and the equal of every living man. Okay. So I know that's kind of harsh. I'm going to be honest with you. And it's usually the women are emotional men because remember, this is a think tank. See, you got to understand that. Put yourself in a position that you're a cabinet member and your job is to free the slaves, but you don't want to do it through warfare. So how can you do this? How can you even get in a position of power first? One, you want to end slavery, but how do you even get in a position of power? And then how can you do that with no casualties, no conflict, or very little casualties if it is a conflict? And so you got to understand that. And see, what happens is, since we're talking about the Declaration of Independence, in a sense, what happens is that's like Thomas Jefferson in the original Declaration of Independence. He had a clause in there talking about, Black people should be free. But you're fighting at the time of the Declaration of Independence. You're in the middle. You're 2 years in, right? No, let me 1775. So you about 1 year, really, 1775. So you 1 year in on the American Revolutionary War with the Brits. And you want to get rid of slavery, which in the future, almost 100 years in the future, is going to be another war called the Civil War, which means South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia, and all of them. If you try to make that move now, don't you think they would join the British and you would never get this nation off the ground? So we need to get rid of the slavery cause for a minute. We'll deal with that later because we got to get established first. And that's just military thinking. Okay. And so for us to think that Abe Lincoln should have stood on business and just said, I'm here to end slavery, and that's what it is, and now I'm standing on business, he don't never get in power that way, ladies and gentlemen. You don't never get free that way, ladies and gentlemen. You don't win the Civil War that way, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to show you that. Okay. So let's get back to this. So obviously here, Lincoln emphasized that Black people are part of the Declaration of Independence, right? All right. So he didn't intend for us to be free. Let's see. So here's his inauguration speech, March 4th, 1861, Lincoln wins. And this is what he tells the South. I have no purpose directly or indirectly to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do such. That's what he said. Right? Now, ladies and gentlemen, South Carolina ain't buying it. South Carolina is like, Abraham Lincoln in, we out. South Carolina started the Civil War, just for the record. They fired the first shot at the Battle of Fort Sumter in Charleston. They shot a merchant ship called the Star of the West. Interesting. A star. The Star of the West. They shot the ship up. And then we said, okay, that's what we on. Okay, cool. Let's battle. And the first battle became known as the Battle of Bull Run. It's what the North called it. The South called it the Battle of Manassas. You can Google this. And I must admit, the United States is getting their ass whipped in the Eastern Theater in the beginning. Okay. But anyway, Abraham Lincoln is like, hey. All this talk about me when I become president, I'm in slavery. I ain't gonna mess with that. I don't believe I got the power to do that. Watch this. Okay. Watch this. Okay. So then why is it, Mr. Lincoln? How is it 1 year later you turn around and say, hey, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are and henceforth shall be free? Whoa, bro, you just told us that you don't have the power, nor is it your intention to interfere with the institution of slavery. That's what you said. But the moment you get your first victory, because you got to understand, when did that Emancipation Proclamation come? I just told you historically, the first battles, Battle of Bull Run 2, known as Manassas and Manassas 2, because it happened in Manassas, Virginia. The United States government is kind of getting whooped on, okay? And other little places in Virginia kind of getting beat on. So General Lee's from Virginia, and is taxing the war on his soil, was taxing the local economy. Like, we got to get the war up off here. So what did they do? They said, let's go up to Antietam, Maryland, and put the war over there. Let's go. And then the United States won that war. Look it up. Soon as the Americans win, the United States win the Battle of Antietam, Abraham Lincoln writes the draft of the Emancipation Proclamation. Facts. Go look into it. Okay. So soon as you get your victory, Mr. Lincoln, you went ahead and went totally against what you said in your inauguration. But see, South Carolina already knew this. This is why they said, yo, he the president, we out. We're going to form our own nation called the Confederate States of America. Mississippi said, we number 2. We rolling with you. Florida said, we number 3. Alabama said, we number 4. Georgia said, we number 5. These your first top 5 right here. Then I think it was Texas, then Louisiana. Okay. So they will your top 7. It's like, yeah, we out. We're going to form our own nation. Jefferson Davis going to be the president of the Confederacy. Our capital going to be here. Yeah. They already knew what Abe Lincoln was on. Okay. Already knew it. Now, let me say this. Let me see what my next slide is. All right. Since he didn't want to have us free. And I got to backtrack on something. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Hold on. We already saw Lincoln in the debates talking about, the black man is entitled to rights as a declaration in the Declaration of Independence, just like we are. Okay. And so then in the Emancipation Proclamation, he turns around and say 77 years ago, he start quoting TJ. See, TJ is like, in today's time, it kind of be like Michael Jordan and then Abraham Lincoln's LeBron. Depending what era you want to watch it in, TJ could be Dr. J and Abraham Lincoln is Michael Jordan. Okay. But he's drawing his inspiration from Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson, ladies and gentlemen, don't get it twisted. TJ is a monster. When I say a monster, TJ made it illegal. See, this is the problem with black folks that I have, and that we have, and that y'all have, because I know this. Okay, so y'all don't know that slavery ended in 3 phases. One, there was a president that made it illegal for the United States of America to send slaves out the country. There was another president who made it illegal for the United States to import slaves into the country. And then the last president, which y'all know, was the one who killed it domestically on the soil, and that's Lincoln. I'm not going to tell you who the other two is. One of them is TJ, obviously, because that inspired me to say that. But we don't even know that. We don't know that. We don't even remember the Missouri Compromise. We don't know. And I'm going to tell you why. Is because I believe we're taught entirely too young in education. That side of the brain isn't developed yet for us to be. We're supposed to be doing more things with the imaginative, creative side and not linear historical things in third grade, fourth grade, talking about history. It don't make no sense. Okay. That's why we can't retain the information. Okay. So the Missouri Compromise is something that drew a line in the sand all the way across the United States of America. No slaves are allowed to be above 36 degrees north latitude. Facts. Period. We ain't having it. Until later, Stephen Douglas, who goes against Abraham Lincoln, helps sponsor and creates the bill, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which said, we doing away with all that, the concept of popular sovereignty. The states have a right to choose. Federal government, get out of our business. Let the states choose if they want to have slaves or not. And the people's like, yeah, that's right, because it's all about the states' rights. So the Kansas-Nebraska Act nullified the Missouri Compromise. And that created a war before the Civil War known as Bleeding Kansas. Look this stuff up, I'm telling you. It's called Bleeding Kansas. Why? Because you had a group of people who wanted slaves. At that time, they were called border ruffians. And you had a people who didn't want slaves and fought against it. Hence, John Brown. Shout out to Killer Mike, who always talk about John Brown. John Brown came to the Kansas territory and said, nah, we ain't having that. We murking y'all. It ain't happening. So it was a fight for so long, they called it Bleeding Kansas. This is 1854 to the start of the Civil War, 1861. Do the math. That's 7 years of territorial war taking place between the citizens, and the government stood by and didn't get in it because we're talking about the expansion of the Western frontier. Let the people figure it out. Let them do what they're going to do. Abraham Lincoln had to defeat that dude, Stephen Douglas. That's who he was going against. Okay. So anyway, all right. So where we at? This is a bonus. But before I get into bonus, let me say this. All right. Let me backtrack a bit because Abraham Lincoln is playing this Union card. And so you got to put on the art of war thinking. South Carolina says, I'm out of here. Mississippi, the South said, we out. Abraham Lincoln said, perfect. I'm going to stick y'all on, y'all can't leave the Union. I'm not going to make this about slavery. You can't leave the Union because there's an agreement already after the Declaration of Independence, like 1778, called the Articles of Confederation in the Perpetual Union. So, ladies and gentlemen, it goes Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation in the Perpetual Union, and this is kind of like a constitution before the Constitution, and then it's the Constitution, okay? So this document here, the Articles of Confederation and the Perpetual Union, we should always strive to be in union with one another, and we can't leave out because this is a pact, okay? So Abraham Lincoln is going to use that as the buffer. All I do for the Union. Ingenious, because guess what? You have people called border states, West Virginia, Kentucky. You have states that did not take arms and ride with the Confederates to go mob on the United States government in the North. They just like, I said, man, I ain't in it. Whatever the aftermath is, and that's just what it is. Now, if you say the slaves are free in the beginning, then these people are like, what? Oh, no, I'm joining the Confederates. So why create more enemies? The war already started. They swung on us first. So now I can say, well, this is the reason, but all the while, really freeing the slaves is the reason, but I'm going to put it on the Union. That's how much of a genius he is. See, some of us, I'm going to digress. I'm not going to even say that. I'm going to let it go. That's how much of a genius He is. Okay. All right. So let's get into some bonus because let's look at the people Abraham Lincoln selected in his cabinet to be around him so you can understand. Because see, some of us, we can't put Lincoln in. Is he for the people? Yay. Is he for the people? No. Or you abstain? It's emphatically yes for me. It's obvious because his opponents tell you that he playing the South. Oh, to my point. So some of us may have the mindset that, okay, Lincoln is pandering, which means we're going to use pandering as he's playing double agent. But he ain't playing double agent on the North because, again, Lincoln is on the record before even entering political office that he's anti-slavery. Okay? Go look up Abraham Lincoln speeches. That's all you got to do. Goddamn, do a little bit of research. Okay? Look up Abraham Lincoln speeches and you're going to see what his sentiment is. And this is documented before he became in office. Okay? So he's anti-slave. The Republican Party starts in 1854, the same year that Bleeding Kansas and John Brown and them is shooting up other white boys who want you as slaves. The Republican Party is created as the anti-slave party. I'm not talking about the Republican Party today. I'm just simply talking about the historical facts on history. Okay? So they start as the anti-slave party. So Lincoln is anti-slave. This is the anti-slave party. And he becomes their first president. There was an election prior to that they tried to run my man John Fremont, which Fremont, California is named after, who also was a Union general in the war to help slaves get free. Facts, John Fremont. Okay, so Lincoln becomes the first president. So now, if the party in Lincoln's ideology is anti-slavery, but then he goes down south and say, hey, I'm of the opinion that white people are the superior race. Who he pandering and being a double agent to? Because he's standing on principle business. He ain't tricking the North and tricking and making a lie up there. He's standing on business. That's documented before he went in office. That's documented when he got in office. So if anybody, he's running the trick on the South, the enemy. Trick your enemy. What y'all think, man? Y'all think you're supposed to just be like, hey, man, I'm coming over there tomorrow at 3 o'clock and I'm shooting up the house. I'm just letting you know at 3 o'clock, okay? Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, stop it, okay? So you have to deceive your enemy. It's the art of war, right? So it's like, you can tell who, if you don't know how you think reflects if you know how to play chess or not. And you don't even have to be a great chess player. Do you even know how the pieces move? Okay? So anyway, that's the whole purpose of that. Let's get into some bonuses. All right, so you can see what's up. Nathaniel Gordon, ladies and gentlemen, was an American slave trader who was the only person in the United States to be tried, convicted, executed by the federal government of having engaged in the slave trade under the piracy law of 1820. I told you that Missouri Compromise, that was that same era, Missouri Compromise, 1819, 1820. Salute to James Monroe that was putting in some work that y'all don't even know, okay? Now, he is the only person to be executed for slaves. In what year is that? 1862. What's 1862? The 1 year anniversary of the Civil War. The Civil War don't end to 1865, started in 1861, and he was put to death. That means who put him to death, ladies and gentlemen? Mr. Abraham Lincoln. Let's read up on it. After Gordon's conviction, his supporters appealed to President Abraham Lincoln for a pardon. While Lincoln was well known among his contemporaries for his compassion and for issuing many pardons during his presidency, he refused to consider one for Gordon, even going so far as to refuse to meet with Gordon's supporters. Lincoln said at the time, I believe that I am kindly enough in nature and I can be moved to pity and pardon the perpetrator of almost the worst crime that the mind of a man can conceive or the arm of man can execute. But any man who, for paltry gain and stimulated only by avarice, can rob Africa of her children to sell into interminable bondage, I will never pardon. Source at the bottom, It was something that was come from The Limits of Lincoln's Mercy, published in the New York Times as the source. Okay? So here it is. You have Mr. Abraham Lincoln talking about, yo, I can forgive you for anything. You can damn near think of the most wildest shit in the world to do, and I possibly can give you a pardon. But for you to commit a crime on Africa and her children, no. And this man was put to death. Question: if Abraham Lincoln had the Union as the objective and not freeing slaves as a moral obligation as the objective, you already the president. Why would you let this man die? Why would you be the first one to have had somebody hung as a conviction under the piracy law if you truly believe that whites are superior? Make it make sense to me, ladies and gentlemen. It don't make sense. Okay. And when you try to rationalize for the negative to make sense, that means you have a negativity bias. Okay. Something wrong in the mental. And it comes from watching too much conspiracy stuff. And it don't mean that some of that stuff don't be real. But certain stuff just, it's just real. You okay? It don't mean that. But when it impairs your decision making, when you see a contradiction in Abraham Lincoln telling you, blacks are inferior, I believe whites are superior, black people are equal to us, you got to reconcile these two. And then I even challenge you to highlight the positive and how the negative makes sense and why that absolutely was positive in an overall message. When you can't do that and your thinking is impaired due to negative news and conspiracy talk all the time, you in a sunken place and you don't even know it. Okay. All right. So again, I do this. I go to these places. So I'm just not talking this talk. I do this. I go to these places. Okay. Who is that man on the right? Salmon Chase. Who is Salmon Chase? Ladies and gentlemen, Salmon P. Chase was an attorney. And one of his most famous cases was representing the colored woman Matilda, who was brought before the Court of Common Pleas in Hamilton County, Ohio. Salute to Cincinnati. Salute to Bootzilla, Boosie Collins, baby, from Hamilton County era. All right. Important because you will see in the middle of the screen on the right, he was the 25th United States Secretary of the Treasury, which we're going to deal with first. And at the top, you see he was the 6th Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And please note, he's nominated both times for both offices by Abraham Lincoln. And please note, at the Chief Justice, he was preceded by Roger B. Taney. Let's deal with these three things. First of all, ever wonder how we got the name Chase? Our founder, John Thompson, named the bank after his friend Salmon P. Chase. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the spirit of this. You mean to tell me the number one bank in the world is named after an abolitionist attorney who was fighting for the rights of Black people in the 1800s in Ohio, okay, who later Abraham Lincoln said, yo, be the Secretary of Treasury, homie. Yo, I'm gonna need you to be over here now and be the chief judge for the Supreme Court. Huh? See, listen, this is the bank that got Black people's bag because of the principle of the spirit of what the bank is named after. And what a coincidence, because God is in control of everything. God allows for Chase Bank to be the number one bank financially. That's why I bank with Chase and I do my real estate with Chase. Salute to Chase. About to come in there this week. All right. So that's a masterpiece. God is beautiful. Okay. Now, remember Roger B. Taney, because it was Roger B. Taney, ladies and gentlemen, who said, Dred Scott, you cannot be a citizen. Negroes were not intended to be in the Declaration of Independence. So this is before Abraham Lincoln. in office. This is Roger B. Taney, known as the Taney era. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of homework, because if you're really true to this, you can look everything up that I said and it's going to check out. Roger Taney was appointed by Andrew Jackson. Okay? Andrew Jackson is the founder of the Democratic Party. Okay. Historically speaking, before Andrew Jackson was the president, he was a general. And General Andrew Jackson went into Spanish Florida. Florida was Spain, and it was not a part of America at the time. And black folks would get free, especially from Georgia, and run down into Florida, which was Spain, where they were free at that point. And they had a place called Fort Negro. Look it up. And General Jackson invades Florida, invades Fort Negro, kills some black people, round the other ones up, and marched them back into the United States and put them back into slavery. Facts. And this is after the United States of America had outlawed the importation of slaves coming into the country is illegal. Yeah. Okay. So go look it up. Andrew Jackson, Fort Negro. Now, watch the spirit on this. Should have had some images so it can sink in your psyche. Now, watch the spirit. Is there not talk about Harriet Tubman being on a $20 bill to replace Andrew Jackson? Should we go through the denominations, ladies and gentlemen? The $1 bill, George Washington. George Washington signed a law in 1794, 1795 that made it illegal to export slaves out the country. I know I mentioned it earlier, didn't tell you who. Now I'm putting you up on game. George Washington also signed a document in 1774. Please note that it's 2 years before the Declaration of Independence. It is 1 year before the Battle of Concord and the Battle of Lexington, which means it is 1 year before the start of the American Revolutionary War. There's a document that Abraham Lincoln mentioned in his inauguration speech called the 1774 Articles of Association. And in that Articles of Association, there's 14 bullet points, and point number 2 says we will have nothing to do with slavery come this upcoming December. At the time, it was like October the 20th, 1774. So in less than 2 months, I'm letting you know, King George, we ain't gonna have nothing to do with slavery. We're not hiring no boats that's dealing with slavery, and we're not gonna be concerned in slavery ourselves. Anything dealing with slavery, we ain't gonna have nothing to do with it. Go read it for yourself. 1774 Articles of Association. Who signs off on this document in 1774? There is no Revolutionary War. There is no America yet. So who signs off on this document? George Washington. That's interesting because in almost, let's just round up, let's just say in almost 20 years from there, right? Less than that, but let's just round 20 years from there, he's going to become your first president. And then a couple more years from there, he's going to sign a law that says it's illegal to export slaves out the country. Y'all don't know history. That's the problem. That's the problem. And you think because a man has slaves and inherited from his dead mama or his wife's parents left them as an inheritance, you think these people ain't got your best interests at heart. These are some people had slaves and turned around and created manumission societies and abolitionist societies to free the slaves because that was the thing that King George imposed on the colonies, man. Hello. Y'all better wake up and understand it and learn who is who and who did what. You don't even know who did what, and all you can think there is racist, everything racist, because you don't have the mind power. Figure it out, black man. And see, this conversation to me ain't got nothing to do with women. I don't need no Harriet Tubman woman. Be beautiful, baby. Do you get out the way? And I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it because my YouTube, I'm going to say it. Niggas been bitch made since slave times. And it shows in their psyche and how they can't articulate art of war strategy in history. Okay? So anyway. So, see, don't get me started, man. All right. So, Roger B. Taney, to get back to him, this cat, he dies. And when he died, Abraham Lincoln put in Salmon Chase. We saw that. Okay. Again, let me go back to it just in case you didn't see it. All right. Let me blow that up. And we're talking about the 6th Chief Justice of the United States of America. Roger B. Taney dies, and Abraham Lincoln appoints Salmon P. Chase. Okay. All right. Now, about to get good. Where we at? We hear Seward. All right. So now let's move on to another person, William Seward. William Seward is the Secretary of State. And notice he signs, he's under who? President Lincoln. Okay. So Lincoln put him in as Secretary of State. Now, William Seward is rolling with Harriet Tubman. There is a statue of these two right now in upstate New York. Why is the Secretary of State, Abraham Lincoln's man, why is he with Harriet Tubman? This is why, ladies and gentlemen. In 1857, William Seward sold Harriet Tubman a 7-acre farm. What? Seward was a well-known supporter of the Underground Railroad. What? Harriet had used his house as a station many times in her trips to bring formerly enslaved people north. What? You mean to tell me Abraham Lincoln had a Secretary of State that was hiding slaves that Harriet Tubman was bringing up north? Huh? A man Jew, huh? What? Can I get a Funk Flex DJ Clue on? What? And he ended up selling her his 7-acre farm? What? See, white folks know this and they doing something about it. But meanwhile, you will have black folks on YouTube saying Harriet Tubman wasn't real. You see how crazy we are? Which, by the way, if Harriet Tubman wasn't real, then that must mean the white man is bored and he wants to inspire you. So he made up a story so she could be real, so you can believe in something to do something. So that means somebody is thinking about you in a positive way, even if they made it up. Dumbass nigga. Okay? So anyway, we see what kind of company Lincoln is keeping. So Salmon P. Chase, abolitionist. And then when the racist judge died, Taney, Lincoln puts in the abolitionist. Then his next pick, Secretary of State, abolitionist, friend of Harriet Tubman. I need you on my team too. Yeah, but his sentiment ain't pro-black, right? He wasn't for the people, right? Come on, man, stop it. Stop it, mister. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Remember, you're supposed to be thinking with a critical mind in the art of war. Black man, period. Mr. Aries Spear, when you name yourself after a spiritual energy that represents this. Now, who is this fella? Well, this fella is, if you look in the middle, 27th United States Secretary of War on the right-hand side, Abraham Lincoln. All right, so now let's look at the Secretary of War, Mr. Edwin Stanton. What did Mr. Lincoln used to call him? Lincoln referred to him as his what? His Mars. What? Wait a minute. The Secretary of War, Lincoln referred to him as his Mars, but Mars is the planet that rules Aries. Mars and Aries is war. Oh, Abraham Lincoln now has a knowledge of planetary bodies, which now makes this a spiritual thing, as that principle pertains to war, and says, I'm going to call you the very thing that represents what you personify. Aries Spear says his name also taps into this energy, but says Lincoln is bullshit. Nah, homie. No. He played with Mars on a whole nother level. You see? And see, I'm going to tell you, Aries, this is why.
Question. How come is it that when I don't agree with your politics or I don't want to vote for Trump, all of a sudden I should stick to comedy?
See, this is why. This is why people will say that, because when you don't know this history, they'd be like, oh man, you stick to comedy, nigga. Stay in your lane. Now, I don't believe that. I don't have that sentiment. But remember, when you make statements that have been proven to be to the contrary, false statements, Abraham won, he won for black people. What? Yeah. Listen, nobody took one for the team more than Abraham Lincoln. And see, that's the thing that really hurts my feeling. I'll be honest about it. See, I'm a sensitive nigga. I can admit the shit. This man was at the theater with his wife, chilling. No guns on Sunday. Omar for the Wire. Chill out, nigga. Sunday, I'm with my girl. Right? We like, okay, it ain't no honor amongst these. Never was anyway. But, we kind of thought it was a code of ethics in a sense. Right? See, in the Civil War, when William T. Sherman from Ohio went to Georgia, and before he starts shooting up all the buildings in Georgia and then set the city on fire, this is why the city seal for Atlanta has this phoenix bird, and it says resurgence, which means to be born again, to rise again, because somebody burned the city down. That was William T. Sherman in the Civil War did that. He told General Hood, who was fighting for the Confederates down south, listen, y'all got about 24 hours to get the women and children up out of here, because I'm about to go ham. So get them on up out of here, because we at war, bro, and I'm on your territory. Get them out of here. That was honor. See, I read memoirs of what was from the individual, not relying on what a person said for the most part. Okay? All right? So, I hope this message landed well and resonated. You know what I mean? I believe that, if we passionate or want to know about this stuff, let's learn about it and whatnot. And I absolutely, as I said in the very beginning, I absolutely believe that if we are in error about something and we made a public statement, then it is our moral obligation to come back and make that correction, because we influence the minds of other individuals. And again, as I stated at the top of the show with the 3/5 myth, even 400 years of a slave, like, come on. That's okay, cool. Some people lack the ability to be able to connect the dots of what I showed. And I don't know, because Lincoln shouldn't have said that, right? Okay, all right. What about 400 years of slave? We were not in bondage for 400 years. It's just not true. Again, Netflix has a special 1619. Did that mean Netflix is true? No. I mean, come on, it's already documented. 1619. Why do we tack on an extra 154 years to this thing? Again, because it's something that was parroted in the Bible. But as I showed, it was said to Abraham, but it happened to be Abraham Lincoln that gets you out the situation. Look at the spirit of God, man. That's the story that need to be told. Let's tell the story of the people who supported us, the people who won. That's the key. Nobody tells their stories. Nobody tell, they put work in. We like, man, listen, man. This gonna make y'all mad. Okay. But it's the truth. Man, y'all act like white people who are descendants of Union soldiers to get black people free them got dead white people and ancestors in these battlefields. There's certain people in their families, their sons took different sides and went to war with each other and totally fragmented the family. One son fought for the North, the other son fought for the South. Like, this thing is bigger than that, but we got to understand it in its totality, man. All right. So I'm gonna come off the gas with that. And as I said in the beginning, and I would love the opportunity to come on and be able to have a conversation. I ain't got no problem. Again, hey, bro, put me on, bro. Let's talk. I think this conversation need to be a widespread conversation, because this is information that it ain't been hidden. We just was taught too early, and we don't read now because we're not really interested. But for the ones that's interested and figure it out and say, hey, yo, look, this is what it's hey, this is what's up. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, let's tell that story. You know what I'm saying? Let's really tell that story. We didn't know nothing about no 1774 Articles of Association. I didn't until Abe Lincoln put me on to it by reading his inauguration speech. Like, think about that though. Like, seriously, like, 1774, before the American Independence War, there's a document to King George letting him know out of 14 bullet points, the second point is saying, yo, we ain't gonna have nothing to do with slavery. We done with that shit. What? And then one of the people who signed off of it becomes the first president, right? And then check this. And you can research this. And then another signatory on that is my man John Jay. Remember Mr. Cheeks? Renee, ghetto love is the love that we live by. My shorty studied law at John Jay. The John Jay Law School in New York is named after him, right? John Jay signs off on this document. But John Jay is the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of America. Now, to me, the way I look at politics in America, the president ain't the man. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the man. That's why, hence, the Chief Justice swears in the president. The president got to go put his hand on the Bible in front of the Chief Judge. The judge is the one that represents the wisdom. We're supposed to be striving to have wisdom, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. This is why our process of jury selection, you ain't supposed to show no bias, right? That's why that process is there, to see if we have sound mind, to see if we understand law. Okay? And so this became your first Chief Justice. Why is that important? Go look it up. Because he was the co-founder of the New York Manumission Society to free slaves in New York City, in New York State. Come on. What? This dude is on a document before the American Revolutionary War with George Washington, and George Washington as president go pick this man, you gonna be the Chief Justice. You think George Washington don't know he signed off on the same document that in point number 2 said we're gonna get rid of slavery? And this man created the New York Manumission Society to free slaves? What are we talking about? I was in a long conversation last night after the live, and I'm gonna close with this. I was like, yeah, you really think it was white people that, just had Christian values, Christian values that just want to free black? Yes. Yeah, I'll drop names and you can do the research. Fact check me. Henry Ward Beecher, a New York preacher known as Beecher Bibles, and his motto was the Bible and the rifle. Okay? He sent guns in boxes on trains in crates, and the crates had stamps on it called Beecher's Bibles. So when they go through checkpoints, it'd be like, oh, these Bibles don't even open up their Bibles, leave it alone. But there were guns going to Kansas, which John Brown happened to be in Kansas, helping free the black folks. And those group of people were called Jayhawkers. That's why the Kansas basketball team, college team, the Jayhawkers. The Jayhawkers were the people that were with you. The Border Ruffians were the people who didn't want you. Later, that were turned into the North and South, Confederate and Union. Okay? Got to know this. Okay? So, to see this is like, hold on. Yeah, we got Christian allies that were 100% based off their belief in the Bible and how they perceived it. Slavery was a great wrong. And yeah, we're going to do this off of moral principle. The father of the Constitution of the United States of America is considered to be James Madison. In the Federalist Papers, why is James Madison talking with John Jay, and John Jay writing some of these papers? John Jay, the one I just told you created New York Manumission Society. Madison was president of the American Colonization Society that created Liberia, Africa. Literally went to the motherland like, hey, we're gonna create this part, and for the free slaves and escaped slaves who want to go back to their motherland, Africa, here you go. We got the boats. Here you go. We wish you luck. Do your thing. Go back to your motherland. But if it's about the Union, and if it's about non-morality of black folks, why are you going to that extent to create a nation called Liberia? And this is why Liberia's flag looked just like the United States flag. because it was created for the return of the enslaved to go back home if they so wish. White folks did that. And it's nothing wrong with admitting that. I don't act like, God damn, we act like we just can't admit the truth. Right? So listen, fact check me. It is what it is. That's what it is. All right. That's just what it is. Want to make sure I ain't leaving no stone unturned here in my mind and whatnot. But yeah, these are, you got, again, tell the story of victory. Because listen, Abraham Lincoln, in the speech called A House Divided, y'all need to go look into that. And I'm going to paraphrase. We both, Confederates, North and South, we both serving the one God, but God gonna have to make a decision on what this is. Woo, that's a heavy thought. We both believe in the same God. We both got one part of the Bible says slave master, slave, be good to your slave master. Another part of the Bible was like, well, no, an eye for an eye, and man shouldn't be treated that way. And you got two ideologies in one God. And if God is real, see, this is how I know people are really atheists. And ain't nothing wrong with being an atheist. My thing is this. Don't say you believe when your belief really shows that you don't believe. If God is alive and well and is the author of every single thing, made a decision that, yes, the North will win and the slaves will be free, then why can't we tell the story of the ones who got us free? Riddle me that. Why we always do propaganda and this is what they did. You always dick riding the motherfucking enemy. What the enemy did. The enemy this, the enemy that, the enemy this. When in truth, your enemy had judgment against him and divine favor for you that came by the way of somebody helping you, and you had the ability to march back down south with guns called the United States Colored Troops, to be exact, got guns and start firing on that white boy who had you as the slave and killed him, and you won. But you can't name 3 people in the Union Army. Name 3 white men in the Union Army that had your back. Who gave Harriet Tubman guns when she was a spy and looking out for her? Who? We don't know. We don't know. Because we got victim mentalities and it must stop. And I'm going to leave it right there. And I hope you get this message, brother, and reach out to me. And as I was taught in my Nation of Islam days, that if I have offended anyone, I apologize in advance, because this ain't about making no offense. It's not about that. This is about al-haq, divine truth, the fact of the matter, to help us to be able to differentiate and put things in the proper category, because this problem that we stem from, this post-traumatic slave syndrome that we had, if we understand God's side and victory in his decision, there's no reason for us to be rocking with the ideology of the victim mentality when we won. Okay? All right, man. Hit me up and get with me. My email is noblewampoo that you see on the screen at Gmail. Holla at you.